Well, g'day campers, how are you? And welcome to another Thursday Night Live. Tonight I've got with me Peter D. Catania from Men's Health Group Australia. And he's smiling, so I've got that right for a change. Thank you, Peter. And I've got the wonderful Paul Stretton-Stephens from over in England, who is a future mindset coach.
Hi, how you doing?
Joining us shortly will be Stacey Copas, just running a little bit behind. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight we've gone a little bit brighter than usual, just to build a bit of sunshine into our lives at the minute. Paul, over in England, I'm presuming you've got some sunshine.
Yeah, glorious. We're in the 25 degrees.
What? Wait, down here in Melbourne, I think we reached the top of 15, which is quite nice.
Oh, no, it's good. Makes a change.
How's it going up there in Queensland, Peter?
26 today, I think.
Oh, jeez. Hey, I'm copping it, aren't I?
Hey, if you want to live, you get the full 4 seasons down there in Melbourne, as they say, how the Yanks say, Melbourne. Yeah.
Well, I love it. I actually, believe it or not, I actually love to run in the rain down here because it's like when you're out, it's freezing cold. I'm out running in the rain. No one else is out, so I feel like I've done 2. So that's always a good one. So, all right.
That's good.
Hello, Stacey.
Hello, I'm here.
How are you tonight?
Fabulous. I couldn't rustle off a Hawaiian shirt. I'm so sorry to let the team down.
It was short notice, and look, we're just trying to put smiles on dials, so we thought we'd do something a little bit different. Mate, I just appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Excellent. Well, good morning from the UK, beautiful UK. I'm presuming that's Adam. Thank you very much for that. Just pop this up quickly. It never gets warm in the UK, apparently. So, Stacey, we're just talking about the weather, and it's 25 degrees over in the UK at the minute.
Yeah, and they're complaining that they're roasting.
Well, I'm not complaining. Give me more.
Yes.
That's so beautiful. Well, if it's all right with everybody, I've sort of done the introductions a little bit already. If we wouldn't mind, I'd really like to jump into tonight's question, which is a great question. And if it's all right with you, Paul, I would actually like to start with you.
Okay.
How can we control our negative emotions and stop overthinking?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, one of the things I think we need to discuss first is what is overthinking? Because it's fueled by negative thoughts anyway. But what is it? I mean, it's linked to a lot of psychological problems like depression and anxiety. It's well documented. It's well researched. It's likely that overthinking causes mental health issues and mental decline. And it's a vicious downward spiral if you get into the realms of overthinking. It's one of those things that you get into and it's very difficult to get out of unless you either seek some help or you really are, hard on yourself and determined to get out of it. And let's look at some of the issues there. That when you're caught in that spiral, there's a few symptoms here, common statements people use, and symptoms like, I can't relax, my brain won't shut off, I can't stop thinking about how my life could be better. All these kind of things go through the person's mind. And normally there's 2 forms of overthinking. And it's commonly held that is overthinking about the past, about things that you could have done, would have done, should have done, all those sort of things, and about the future. But I think when we've had this pandemic, there's been a lot of overthinking about the now as well. And that's been really critical, because I don't think a lot of the mental health practitioners, they're really geared up to the past and the future overthinking and the problems that come with that. But it's the thinking about the now. It's brought about more overthinking for people. And there's, people dwell on problems. And there's some real key symptoms and indications. I was talking about this to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, actually. And he says, well, I think I'm an overthinker now. He said, I really do. He said, because I didn't realize before. He said, but some of the things you've been saying, he said, I do those. He says, and thinking about it now, yeah, I'm an overthinker in some aspects of my life. And he desperately wanted to get out of that because he saw how negative that was. And how that was interrupting his sleep patterns. That was one of the main indicators for him as an individual. It interrupted his sleep patterns. And we know what sleep deprivation is like. You know, especially if you've had kids, you really know what sleep deprivation is like. But broken sleep, loss of appetite, loss of concentration, poor relationships with your loved ones or your work colleagues, and everything just spirals out of control. So just that one thing alone of, you know, lack of sleep can really do it for you. But there's things like you relive unwanted behaviors of your own behaviors or the behaviors of others that have really, you know, bugged you and got annoyed you and really got in your skin. You know, you really relive those. Let's see, what else? You ask yourself a lot of what if questions. What if I did this? What if I'd have said that? Oh, what if I'd have gone here? You know, all these different questions. And you assume things. People who assume things a lot come out with phrases like, well, I expect this will happen. Yeah, they're bound to do this. And this is the way they work. And it's based on no substance. And what happens is that they overthink to start with because they're fearful or they're anxious about what's going to happen. So they assume something's going to happen in the way that they think it is. And that's the biggest setup for disappointment I've ever come across in my life, is over assuming things. Yep. And then also looking about hidden meanings, about what people have said. You know, oh, did they really mean this or did they really mean that? Oh, no, well, I took it. Oh, no, is it that or is it this? All these different aspects going over and over in somebody's mind. They play the conversations repeatedly and constantly reliving your mistakes. When you replay them in your mind, it's quite powerful, especially if somebody's quite visual in their approach and they relive mistakes, but they play it like a movie in their head. It becomes quite real. And that is a cycle. It's easy to break, but the person's got to want to break it in the first place. And just spending a lot of time worrying about things you have no control over, even small insignificant things, can really, you know, fuel that overthinking. And just not being able to relax and quieten the mind. So there's a whole host of areas there of overthinking that they're all the typical symptoms. There's about a dozen there of how people can really identify if they are overthinkers or not.
Would you say most people are overthinkers?
I think we all overthink at some point, but it's keeping it in control and keeping it in check and not letting it control you.
I find myself overthinking things many a times. Like there's no difference to myself coming on to the Campfire Project and actually starting to host it. I was overthinking everything.
But do you lose sleep over it?
Initially, yes. Initially, it was a big thing because I didn't want to let down Alan and the Campfire and the other team members, and because I hold this in such high regard that I didn't want to make a mistake. So. And it was until I actually spoke to Alan and I actually admitted that to him that I actually got the opportunity for him to slow me down and say, it will be fine. Which is
You've just said the thing though, haven't you? Initially, so you were losing sleep over initially. You had a conversation with somebody else for some support and some validation. Do you have sleepless nights about it now?
No, not at all.
There you go. You've taken those steps, haven't you?
Absolutely. But that's any sort of overthinking can be overcome.
Oh, yeah. But you've got to want to do it.
100%. 100%. And it's like, Stacey, if it's all right with you, I'll just jump over to you about the overthinking side of things before we get into it, because I believe you would have had some overthinking for many years.
Oh, absolutely, and especially touching on stuff that Paul just said about the what ifs and replaying things like a movie and almost visualizing just doing something slightly different and beating yourself up about why did you do those things, and certainly I did that for many years, especially in my teenage years after I had an accident when I was 12 and broke my neck and drowned in a relative swimming pool, and that left me a quadriplegic and needing a wheelchair. And so certainly I thought a lot about the past, as what I used to do that I couldn't do anymore, what happened and beat yourself up about that, but also then the future stuff about, thinking that it's hopeless or, always catastrophizing the worst that could happen, or it's like, what's the point type stuff. And I think the thing is even the overthinking never goes away. We just get better at dealing with it. I think that's the thing. It happens. It still happens. I still probably happens at some point every single day. There's a point where you go, hang on, back up the bus a little bit here. You've sort of gone a little bit too far down that track, and needing to actually just check in with yourself and again, is it productive? Is it helpful? But it's interesting that you see the overthinking tends to happen in a negative connotation, and I think what would be interesting to do is like, what if we flipped that, and what if we actually then started to overthink about the positives and about what the creating the visions for the future, or actually overthinking and reliving and celebrating the really positive stuff that's happened in our lives. And so that's just sort of popped into my head now. It's like, okay, if we do find ourselves down the track of overthinking a negative situation, then potentially could we just go, okay, I've gone down this negative track. Now I need to actually balance it out with some positive stuff, and then sort of look for, okay, what's the equivalent? What's an equivalent measure of perhaps reliving a positive experience, or visualizing something that we want to achieve in the future, and maybe just counteract a little bit of it that way.
Yeah. No, I love it. Sorry, every time both you and Self and Paul, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Peter, you talk, I just sit there and I indulge too much because it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So, Peter, if it's all right with you, overthinking, has it been a part of your life? Is it still a part of your life?
I think it's an everyday occurrence for everyone, especially myself. It just depends on the situation, really. Like, I mean, if you're going through quite a horrific situation where there's a lot of grief, you cannot help but overthink. It's in your life. Until you have time to really space out your thoughts and be kind of more intellectually smart about it, emotionally smart about it, sorry, it can keep us in this hold for quite some time, and it can be quite scary. And at the end of the day, it's working out what we can and cannot do and what's real. What is actually real? Is it make believe, that the overthinking? Is it just us just being nervous about a situation and just overthinking and over talking it? Or are we just programmed that way from our childhood and we can't get out of it? And I've had to do reprogramming, and as you know, I'm going through some reprogramming now with some things, but deep stuff, like I'm talking childhood trauma stuff. But on the other hand, like when I was 21, I had to learn to love myself, and I had to say those things to myself so I could prove to myself that I was lovable and I am lovable. And I had to say those things for quite some time. I'm talking morning, lunchtime, and dinner time. 3 times a day for a whole year. So now when I think it, I just smile. So there is a positive connotation, like you said, Stacey. It is. There are sides of it where it's really good, but if you're not aware of it, like I have a friend and she's full on with it. And I just go, hey, wait a minute, just step back, just pull up, pull the horse up a bit. Like you said, back the bus up. Same difference. And this person, she's nearly 60. And she's horrendous with it. And I spoke to her today and I said, hey, wait a minute. Why are you saying all of these things? It hasn't even happened yet. She goes, okay, then what would you do? And I would say to the person, listen, I can't divulge that information to you. It's actually a personal situation. And that's it. Cut it off. You don't have to give them a whole story about it. So she was overthinking about what someone would ask her. How would she respond to a question? Just cut the question off, throw it back. So and then she goes, I knew you'd come up with a good answer. And I said, well, it's none of their business. So you need to tell them in a way that's respectful, that they get that, and that you can give them information, but just give them minimal information. And so she had to think about a different way of because she was so concerned about this stuff. Because You know, it was a work issue, and we work closely together. And but it's a government organisation, so it gets quite colourful. You know, there's lots of red tape, lots and lots and lots and lots of red tape, and but I'll go back to when I was going through a divorce, and I didn't see my children for a length of time. I'm talking 3 months, and you can't think of anything else but your kids. And why? Because you love them, you worry about them, you worry when you're going to see them next. You're not given a bone, not even know where they are, what's happening. So of course you're going to overthink. And the only way to really get yourself out of that, I feel, is you need a really, really good positive distraction. A positive distraction. Like we talked about when I bought that mountain bike, I went flying down that hill. You know, like I was too worried about hitting gum trees on those dirt tracks and then thinking about my kids or thinking about what was going on, and I got fresh blood going through. So I was distracted from my thoughts in a positive way, with new blood going through my body, thinking about not hitting gum trees, doing 60 kilometres down these trails on my mountain bike. But getting off the lounge and getting out of your unit or out of your house or out of your office or out of your shed or out of wherever you are where you're consumed with those thoughts. So sometimes a positive distraction can be really helpful. But what about if you're not? What about there's no one there to suggest that and you don't have those tools? And that's why it's important to reach out. As we say all along, for all these things, we need to reach out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a big part of the thing that everyone's trying to. We're all working towards getting people to reach out, and sometimes we don't have the avenues to do that. We don't do that. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Paul, if that's all right, and start talking about the ways we can control our negative emotions.
Well, one of the first things is Peter's just touched on this as well, is you need to pause and ask yourself, what are you overthinking about? And ask yourself, does it help you? Does it serve you to keep thinking about the same thing over and over again? I don't know whether you've seen the film Bridge of Spies with Tom Hanks, any of you, but there's a Russian spy and he's been captured in America. And Tom Hanks is an American lawyer that's been appointed as his defense attorney. And he really didn't want to do this. And he ends up being with this Russian spy, trying to defend him, and the whole country's against him, And he's worried as hell, about being the lawyer for this guy. And he meets the guy, and the guy's just sat there, cool as a cucumber, and he's absolutely fine. He says, well, aren't you worried? He just went, would it help? He knew what his situation was very clearly. He was a captured spy, and he knew what the consequences of that were. And he had no intention of overthinking it. He knew what the consequences were. That was it. No point in worrying about it. It wasn't going to change anything.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to change anything. And I think that's what people need to realize is, if I'm overthinking about this, if I think for 10 minutes or 10 hours about it, is it going to change anything? Probably not. So now start thinking about something positive, as Stacey said and Peter said, because that distraction really helps. Finding a positive distraction, whether it's a new musical instrument or picking up the old one, painting, woodwork, tai chi, yoga, whatever rocks your boat, go for it. But there's other areas you can do. Some people think it's a bit mumbo jumbo to do meditation, but it's more accepted these days, meditation, and people really do understand the value of it. And I'm not saying you have to be a yogi that meditates and levitates. You can sit for 5 minutes. You can meditate on a walk. You can meditate to music, meditate in the silence. You don't have to be with a group of hippies to do this. And if you don't really go with the theme of meditation, just breathe. Taking breath really does help. It gives you time to take stock, brings in new oxygen. You really flood the body with new oxygen, breathe deeply, and do that for a few minutes during the day. Or if you find yourself panicking and overthinking and anxious, take stock, breathe. And these are solutions you can do today, now. And they do help.
Are you a meditator, Paul?
Every morning.
Every morning. Okay, how long for?
30 minutes normally. But
okay.
my wife and I have done a practice quite recently, which is slightly different. So if anybody's interested in that, it's serving us well. So what we're doing is we're reading an extract from a book. Maybe the book from Tiny Buddha or Mojo or some personal development book. We read an extract or a chapter from that, or on an audio book, have it read out, and then we stop it and say, okay, I'll ask my wife, well, what does that mean to you? So you've provided a distraction here for anybody who's overthinking, because they have to concentrate on what the content is in the book, and then they have to think about what it means to them. They have to analyze it and then articulate it. So me as a man, I'm learning from her from a female perspective on the same text, same content, how she feels about it. And then I say what I feel about it. But while we're in dialogue, you can't help but apply that text to your own life and your own situation. Yeah. So it's really healthy. And then after that, we meditate for a quarter of an hour. Yeah, and it really works. It's amazing.
So as a couple, has that brought you two closer together?
If that's possible, because we're really we're there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it really is healthy because you choose a different perspective every day. You dip into the book. Okay, well, look at this one, or listen to this track or whatever. And you can do it with songs. If you've got songs, listen to songs and listen to the lyrics and then say, what do those lyrics mean to me if you're really into music? I mean, songs are powerful, really powerful. I mean, we must all have a song that actually has urged us on, motivated us, and got us out of sticky situations mentally. Anybody not? Because, I mean, if you've seen the film Burlesque, there's a beautiful song that You Haven't Seen the Last of Me Yet by Cher. When I lost my sight, that said everything to me. I played that. I cried my eyes out time after time after time playing that in the early days. But look at me now. I'm fine. It's just, it's so powerful. And we rewatched the film the other night. Well, I say watched, listened. And that song came on and it just brings it back. You haven't seen the last of me yet. And you certainly haven't. This is it. This is just every day's the beginning.
Yeah.
Every day is the beginning of tomorrow.
Every day is a new opportunity. Every single day. To start the day off with a good practice is so important in just making sure that you're present and you own that day. And I'm going to pop over to Stacey because I think you are absolutely resonating with her something severe. Because I do know that Stacey loves her music.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it came up when we last had a chat as well. And yeah, music is something that, it's just so powerful on so many levels. And even while I was getting ready for our chat tonight, I just stuck on a playlist on Spotify and chucked it on shuffle and had a bit of a sing along. And I think that there's just so many levels that how music can help us. It can bring out an emotion of a particular time in our lives. It can get your heart rate up or drop your heart rate down depending on the tempo of the music. If you choose to have a sing along with it, it's another way to get the oxygen flowing through your body as well, because you get the big deep breaths in when you do that. I find it so powerful, and that's why I'm very close to launching my podcast now, which is basically honouring the role that music's played in my life and kept me alive at the lowest of times. And I just think that it's just so powerful, and music is just such a huge part of our, well-being, our resilience, all of those things. And I think that again, if it's about stopping overthinking or controlling the thoughts going into they go into the death spirals at times, is just reach for some music and just play it, and whether it's singing along or just sitting with your eyes closed and just feeling right through it. It's so powerful. So I find that's really good, and I just love those tips, Paul, about your morning routines as well, because I think that that's just so powerful, especially with another person. I think there's just so much that you could take from a practice like that. So I'm definitely keen to explore that at some point as well. I think that would be really beautiful. And much like Paul, I'm a meditator as well, and I was a bit late to the party on the meditation train, and it was something that I did some classes probably about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, and dabbled for a bit, and then I just completely lost touch with it. And over the last couple of years, I've come back to it. But I think it's using meditation both as a proactive strategy, but also as a reactive strategy to bring you back in the moment as well, if you need to do it through the day. But I find if you do it as a proactive strategy, there's less chance of the thoughts getting out of control through the day. I find that, much like you said, Scott, if you start the day well and you start the day getting centered and grounded and focused and have clarity about what you're doing for the day and why you're doing what you're doing, it's harder to get thrown off track when you have that clarity and you have that level of groundedness.
Yeah, very much so. And I'm just going to go back to something, because it's something that I believe heavily in, which I'm pretty sure everybody here will: input, output. Whatever comes in goes out. So if you are finding yourself inside a negative pattern, keep guard at the gates. Choose your music for positive music. And a great mentor of mine, Mick Hawes, always gave me YouTube clips to watch first thing in the morning. Les Brown, who else we got? Tony Robbins, all these people to get the mojo going in the morning, get it going well. And I find that that's really, really important if you've got some negative thoughts. Some music, if you feel it's negative, there's a good chance it's going to make you feel negative. If you want to change it, put on some happy music. Find some happy music. Google happy music, because it will change you. So, Peter, have you experienced with music in your life?
I would say massively. First of all, if I want to do any sort of exercise downstairs, mate, I'll tell you what, the Tiger comes on and I'm like Rocky downstairs. And I'm doing like 100 push-ups and, I think I'm doing 100. I'm probably more doing like 10. But it's like it really, really lifts me up. Like that really gets me going. I was one of those children that was blessed, absolutely blessed with natural rhythm. And put the music on, and I used to dance. And I think from 5, 6, 7, I was dancing. And I realised that was more of an escape for me. And it was when I was most happiest, when I was dancing. And my dream was to always to be able to dance with a woman, to dance with a lady, and to have that closeness and, to the music, whether it be, to dance with her to Celine Dion or something soppy like that or whatever it was, right? And I was dating this lady when I was living on my dad's farm up in Noosa, and we'd broken up, and I moved to Brisbane for work, and I knew nobody. I absolutely knew nobody. And I was missing my girlfriend, and she was like cut me off because she was chasing someone else, and I was just devastated because it was my first girlfriend, and I'm thinking, what can I do that makes me happy? What can I do? And I go, I'll go out dancing, right? So I went out to this nightclub and on the dance floor, and I'm getting into it, and I used to feel strange because this is in the late 90s, and like if you dance like I did in a normal club, you kind of like labeled as being gay, you know what I mean? So I didn't care. I just get out there because it was what made me feel good. But the problem was my aura would touch other people and they didn't like it. So they'd ask me, could you please not dance near us, or could you please, hop off the dance floor? And it was so rude. And one time when I was trying to cheer myself up, this guy said, can you please get off the dance floor because we don't feel comfortable with you there. And I hopped off. I went and got myself a drink and I sat down and I bawled my eyes out. I was so upset because it's the only thing that made me happy. And these F-wits had no idea what was going through my mind. I missed my girlfriend. I had no family where I was living, had no friends, and the only thing that made me happy was dancing. Anyway, those tears turned to anger. And I go, no one's ever going to tell me ever to get off the dance floor ever again, right? And I got up there and I just burnt the dance floor. And like a few years later, 3 years later, I think, I end up getting to Latin dancing, and I've been doing Latin dancing for 20 years. I end up performing with an amateur dance group, and I've danced with millions of women, you know, and now I've got a partner and we dance together. So, you know, it has a big impact with you on your music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's really important just there, Peter. You know, like you're getting negative feedback and you've gone, no, I'm going to tackle this. I'm going to have a crack at this. I'm going to do this because I'm important. And I think that's a super important message to everybody. You are important. If you're getting negative impact, negative vibes coming at you, walk forward. Don't take a backward step. Take a step forward.
Yeah.
I
got creative. You know what I ended up doing? I ended up just going to dance in the gay clubs because they had better music. And I met some really cool people. I met females there as well. And I mean, I'm not gay. I never have been, and I'm not really interested in that side of things. But I appreciate all sorts of people. And I got hit on a couple of times, but I thought that was more of a compliment than anything. You know what I mean? But it was like, but I felt like I wasn't being harassed for being me. I wasn't being put down for being. I just like people were dancing from all ages in the gay clubs. It didn't matter. But I found that I wasn't being put in a box or had that stereotypical labels put on me, you know, in a normal nightclub.
Yeah.
But now to dance salsa and dance all those things is really cool now. Like everyone's doing it, right? You know, it's massive. It's huge. And I reckon, like, if you want to have friends for life, learn to dance and learn to dance socially, and you'll never be alone. You'll never be lonely because you're always going out and you see people that you know. And I can go out and I know 10, 12 people on a Sunday night. You know what I mean?
So, I am. This is quite funny actually. There's a lady who's popped up with a beautiful comment, and I'm going to put it up. I've known Jessica for a very long time, and I haven't seen her in years. And I said to her, but this is in January before COVID kicked in. I can't wait to see you. Let's do something. Why don't we go and get a dance lesson and catch up? So perfect time to pop this up. And I'm sorry for cutting everybody off. Self-awareness, catching it when it happens and naming it and asking, is this thinking helpful? Cognitive sense-making or process sitting with the emotion, or rumination and getting caught in the struggle. This is what I find helpful, but even then, pulling yourself out of a mood, it is a hard skill to build and get on with life with the way you want anyway. Anybody got something like to throw on top of that? I will.
Yeah, look, there we go. Isn't it funny? It's like it's at that moment, and then everyone jumps in at once.
I was going to, but I was being polite.
Yeah, look, I think that you know, as Jessica said, it's a lot of it is self-awareness, and self-awareness is a practice and it is a skill that we need to exercise. So it is checking in with ourselves, and as I said, acknowledging the feelings, labeling it. I think once you label something, it's really helpful. And I think also too is identifying the difference between what is you and what is a feeling, because I think so many people will say, "Oh, I am anxious." I'm like, no, you're a person who's feeling anxious, and just that distinction of separating your identity from a feeling can be so powerful to do that. And because I hear people say all the time, "Oh, I'm an anxious person." I'm like, if you just reframe that a little bit, like you're a person who feels anxious from time to time. And I even still, sometimes I still have those thoughts myself, where you go to say I am something, and it's like, but is it a feeling or is it a part of my identity? And so I think that that's really helpful, but it's also really helpful to actually sit with the feelings as well, because I think one of the big mistakes that can happen, particularly around, you know, resilience, positive psychology, mental toughness, all of this sort of area, is that element of it's like, oh, you know, harden the F up and just get on with it type of thing. And that's not helpful. You know, we need to actually sit with things. We need to experience it. We just don't stay there, because if we don't process stuff in the moment, it's going to just fester and fester and fester, and it's just going to come back with a bigger bang down the track. And it's also that we don't just process things once either. Sometimes we can beat ourselves up because we think, oh, I've dealt with this. It's like, you don't just deal with something once. You know, there's things that will come back up in our lives, and then it's a matter of going, well, processing it again. But yeah, so I think a lot of the time I look at particularly negative emotions and negative feelings is I look at them as feedback. And I go, okay, what's this telling me? Or what can I take from this? Then what can I do with that to move on? And I guess that's how I that's the process, that pretty much what Jessica's describing. That's how I sort of do it. And a lot of that for me, I write. I always say I write my way out of any challenge. Is I just get the journal and I write, and it just helps me to externalize all of that stuff as well. And you know, sometimes it can be talking to another person. I talk to my journal, but it's getting it out of your head. And sometimes when you look back at it on paper, it's like, oh, is that all? What was I so worried about? It's definitely when you can externalize it, as I said, to separate the feeling or the behavior and the emotion from your identity is really helpful.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Writing things down, journaling, like it actually slows down your thought process because you can't write as quickly as you think. So writing out a process of negativity will actually help because it will slow that process down. Give you an opportunity to sit with it, find the fault in the negative, or find the positive in the negative, even better. Because quite often I find that I do a thing called brain dumping that again Mick Hawes taught me, where I sit down and I write until I find peace. When I finally found peace, then I just let it go and I move on because it's out of my head. I've compartmentalized it over there. And now I've got free brain space to deal with other things. So journaling, I know that's a big part of your life, Stacey, and I think it's a phenomenal thing.
Can I just jump in there, Scott?
Yes, please.
There's a real simple technique. Obviously, it depends on what you're overthinking about. I mean, if you've got something that's really just needling you and really annoying you, keep worrying about things, there's a technique called vanquishing your ants. Vanquish your ants, automated negative thoughts, because they're poison to your system. And it involves writing. So a healthy thing is to set aside worry time, 10 minutes with a pen and paper. During that time, write down all your worries, no matter what their size is, and then read them and speak them out loud and get them out in the open. So you've done that internalizing process. It's taken you time to write it, as you said, Scott. And then as Stacey said, you've got the externalizing process. It's on paper. But now go a step further and read it out loud. Read it out loud. Really get it out there. And when you've done that, then tear up the paper into tiny bits and throw it away. Better still, throw them on a fire if you've got one.
Yeah.
But then the final process in that is when you've done that, now go and do something positive. You know, as Stacey said right at the beginning, flip it, make it positive. 10 minutes of worry time, follow that process, and then go out and do something positive. Garden, call a friend, watch a movie, play a game, whatever you want to do. And you'd be amazed at the effect of that technique, vanquishing your ants.
I love that. And I'm going to ask, have you got that systematized somewhere? Because if you have, because I think on this particular panel tonight, there's some amazing tools that we've all got. So perhaps if we've got a tool or two, I'll put up brain dumping. Stacey might be able to put up journaling. Paul, you can vanquish the ant. Peter?
Yeah, I just want to touch on something. I had a previous relationship with a woman that I adored at the time, and she suffered pretty heavily from anxiety, and that would fuel the fear, and then the fear would fuel the anxiety. It was a massive vicious circle. And she start at night, you know, like playing her eyebrow and just like thinking and her nails, and it used to drive me crazy. And I'm a very loving, supporting guy, and like I found that the more I supported her, because I wanted to support her because I loved her, and I didn't have the tools that I kind of do now, but I found by supporting her, in the way she needed was actually enabling the behavior. And it just made our relationship just like she was so scared that someone would find me attractive, and then they would steal me away from her, or I'd find someone more attractive than her, and it was a lot of different things like that, and it was just so taxing, and I lived it with her daily, and we couldn't go to sleep at night unless all the floors were mopped and all this, and it was just the OCD and everything. Like, I lived it with her, and I really, really tried to help her, but I found in the end I was enabling it. So why I'm bringing this up is to ask you guys as well, because we are a panel, is like, how do we support someone that's that really close to us, that's pretty much we're in their pockets, they're in our pockets? Paul, you're saying you got a lovely wife, you're very close on the same thing. But what I'm saying, if you have, like, my ex-partner, she said, oh no, I'm on top of all my things, I've done all this work and done all that, but to me, clearly she hadn't, from my side, what I could see. But it drove me insane. It drove me to the point where I cannot live with this woman anymore, and I didn't want to leave because we had a son. But it got that bad that I had to do something about it. And now I'm in a new relationship and a lot happier, and I have a much better life, and I see my son. But I couldn't stay in that negativity. I couldn't stay in that fear-based relationship, no matter how. And in the end, I realized I was actually enabling it by trying to help her, but obviously I wasn't helping.
Yeah.
So, Paul, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a real tough one, because when you're a couple and you've got that love relationship, that can obviously turn. And when you've got OCD involved in there, you mentioned OCD,
Yes.
you're talking there, you need somebody who's trained as a therapist.
Yeah.
You need to go to couples counseling, or get the lady to go to therapy to address those issues. And then by that one person going to therapy, then you can get guidance on how you can support them from the experts.
Yeah, well, I did. Yeah, I actually went and saw the psychologist just to make sure I was doing okay, because I was starting to go downhill a bit myself, and then I brought her into it, and then but she just clearly did not want to recognize anything. So the only way was for me to move on, unfortunately, because I didn't want to live in a miserable relationship. And it's so, like, I actually had quite a lot of guilt afterwards, because I felt, sometimes you think, can I do more? But sometimes you can't. The other person has to be able to recognize it and want to change it themselves.
That's really true. And I always work on the basis of never to possible. Because if you've got somebody who is always, well, this is never going to happen, we're never going to do this, this can never be, we can never succeed in this. And if they can't see the possibilities and change their language, because changing your language, you change your thoughts. If you can't change that language from never to possible, then you're in a really difficult situation, especially in a relationship. Because if one can and the other can't, where are you going to go?
Exactly. And sorry, Stacey, go ahead, Dal.
I was just going to add there too. I think, look, I've been in. I think if anyone that's been in a relationship with somebody that has things like that and addictions and stuff like that, then I think there is an element. There does come a point where staying there is enabling. And the big thing that I learned is that you can't care about somebody else's problems more than they care about them.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there comes a point where we do have to step away. And there's an element of guilt around that. There's a huge element of guilt of stepping away from somebody that you feel a sense of responsibility to support and to help, and someone that you have loved. And but there is that element where there comes a time where you do need to step aside and let them take responsibility for where they're at and the consequences of their actions and their choices to either pursue some professional support or to not pursue that professional support. And I think the other thing that's really interesting as well, and I'm finding this even in a new relationship, is when you're a coach, or we have this level of skill that we all have. Sometimes I find, even last night we were messaging, and I said, okay, is it okay for me to ask these questions? I feel like I've got my coach hat on, and I don't want to get too coachy with you, because you can't coach somebody that you're in a relationship with.
Yeah, but if you're coming from the heart and you explain that that's of foremost importance,
it's
that you're coming from the most bottom, like the most softest part of your heart, and push that more, I think that can help.
I think what you just said, Stacey, is really key, because even when we're working with clients, we ask permission to probe deeper, don't we? And I think we need to be more mindful of that with people we love, because we have to be really delicate about it and really ask the permission, maybe seek reassurance it's okay to go there. Because they might not be at that space at that time.
Totally, and that's exactly what I did. I said, if I have your permission, then he's like, no, keep asking, keep pushing, push the boundaries. I'm like, okay.
I'm putting my hand up now because I maybe don't ask permission enough. And inside, it's I'm forever green and growing, and this is something that I've fallen trapped to, not asking permission whether or not my partner wants help. Because just because I'm on a journey of self-help and rectification and working with things doesn't necessarily mean she's in the same path right now. So, getting that right's a tough one when you're someone trying to help all the time. So I really enjoyed hearing from Paul. But I think something that is really, really simple that we forget a lot is to say thank you. When people are hurting and they're actually putting it on you, that's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of where they're at. If somebody's comfortable enough to put their crap onto you, this is a strange way to look at it, but it's actually them saying, I'm actually safe to do this to you. And I've found the best thing I can do is just hold ground. Thank you for that. And it flips them. And it's about literally flipping them because they're in a current state of fear or anger. And if you're holding the space and coming to them with that place of love, geez, it makes a difference to the scenario. So I'm going to be, just before we move on from that, I have to do this. I can't wait to dance with Jessica. I'm looking forward to it too. So, but on that, so I'm going back to that. But the thank you, for me, it's something we just don't do enough, And I've worked with different people that have had real opportunities, and my biggest win with them was they said thank you to each other, because it changes not the way that they feel, it changes the way you feel when you've got gratitude. Someone comes to you with anger and you say thank you, if you feel better, you change your perception, and then it stops the anger at that point. I think that's a big way to go. If anyone would like to comment on that, I'd love your
thoughts. Can I just say something on that quickly? Yeah. Tom Peters, the management guru from the US, he was working McKinsey and wrote Circle of Excellence and Thriving Without Chaos and all these sort of books. He left McKinsey, and one of the stories in there is he went back 5 years later just to see people and that, and there was a lot of the office staff were still there. And when he was there, he used to write handwritten thank you notes. Always at the end of his day, who do I need to thank today? And he would send this handwritten thank you note. And when they'd all gone home, he'd leave it on their desk for the morning when they got in. And when he went back 5 years later, on the board next to her screen, next to her space, this one particular woman had all those handwritten thank you notes still there pinned on her board, even 5 years later. So never underestimate the power of a thank you.
Yeah, that is beautiful to hear. Because I truly make a point of that. I make a point of making sure I thank people, and I know the difference it's made to my life. It might be 2 years down the track. Like my mate over in the UK who I met in France, the first man to ever tell me he loved me. Like, I don't know if I've shared this or not, but I'll share it now.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Yeah, so, I was so angry at him because he told me he loved me. Who the hell was he to tell me he loves me? Who's this man telling me he loves me? 3 months I held on to that anger. And who did it affect? Me. And now I'm got a big heart, comes around, loves to squeeze and hugs everyone, you know. So, but it's gratitude. Yeah.
Yeah, with the whole thank you thing. Sorry, with the whole thank you thing. Remember, I talked to you before. Sorry, remember I talked to you before about the whole thank you thing. It was about self-love as well. When I think when people give you a compliment, I've had to teach myself to say thank you. I appreciate what you said, because it's accepting that gift and being thankful for that gift and having that self-love to be able to of acceptance.
Yeah.
And it can be quite vulnerable for some people to say thank you.
Yeah. I think it's vulnerable for most people to say thank you, because most people don't think they deserve the compliment because they're actually inside their head. You know, I still have trouble with that. Stacey?
Yeah, often we deflect it, don't we? We deflect it. And someone gives us a compliment and there's a tendency to deflect or to downplay what is it that they've just given us a compliment about. And that's actually that's rejecting. That's actually blocking the energy that they've given. It's like when somebody gives you a gift and people, you know how often people go, "Oh, you shouldn't have." That's such a peeve of mine. It's a real peeve of mine, because it's actually then, because you know it's like to be the joy that comes with giving something, and then instead of someone just going, "Thank you, that was so thoughtful," then someone goes, "Oh, you shouldn't have." It's almost like, I don't want your gift. Or I don't feel comfortable about your gift. So that saying thank you, like I struggle with that so much. It's particularly when I first started speaking, and people would come up afterwards and go, or they would thank me, or they would give me a compliment about something I said or what it meant to them. And I just felt so awkward just to say thank you. And then when I just started to say thank you and smile, I was like, okay, this is good. And then I ended up taking it to another level. Once I felt comfortable with accepting their gratitude, it's like I gave them something, they're giving me something back, and everything in life is an energetic exchange of value. And so then to sort of not feel so awkward with just saying thank you and then crickets, I would just say thank you, and then I would perhaps ask a question and go, was there something specific that really resonated for you? Or it could be like if someone gives you a compliment, it could be, you can say thank you and then even ask them a question about that compliment, or even just then compliment them back and even just say that was really thoughtful of you. I think that's something that, again, I think that's lovely, because for someone to actually go out of their way to actually go and say something really nice and positive to you, like that takes courage a lot of the time too, doesn't it? To actually to step out and say that. And like Scott, as you said, your friend who said that he loved you, like, for somebody that, especially for, I think for guys, and I think even just for friends, like I've come from haven't been brought up in an environment where everyone says that they love each other. But then when you get to to be an adult, and I say I love my friends all the time, and it's such a good energy, isn't it? And I think, just to accept that, and to people say nice things and thank you. But as Peter said, it does take that level of working on your own self-love to be able to then feel worthy of accepting that as well. And sometimes there is I think in the beginning there's a little bit of pretend that you're comfortable with it and you sort of grow into it. But the self-love process it's like I realized it was something I needed to do a couple of years ago. And to the outside world, it probably looked like I was all over it. But I didn't really feel worthy, and I didn't really have that depth of love and appreciation for myself. And so what I did, and it felt so wanky to start with, but each night when I laid down, I closed my eyes, I actually said out loud to myself, I love you, Stacey. And then I went to sleep. And it felt so weird. But I did that and I stuck with it. I did it for 30 days, and then that process then evolved into what now is my gratitude mantras and my gratitude rituals, which I think a lot of people know me for the gratitude piece and the mantras I use. And it started from a self-love process. And ultimately, self-love is gratitude for ourselves anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was explaining to you back when I was 21. I did those positive affirmations for a whole year. And it's amazing. Now I just think of them, and it just makes me smile. So you probably think of what you used to say to yourself at night time, you just smile now because it's so in you. It's so part of you and part of your belief, your new belief system.
Yeah, and I write affirmations now every day as well. I've got about 20 that I hand write every single morning. And again, some of those felt really wanky at first too.
Yeah.
But then when you do it every single day and you own it, like I've been doing it since the beginning of the year, like since late last year, and it started off with just a handful and now it's evolved to 20. Because as I pick up new ones, because I think as you own some of them, then it's like you've got space to take on some that are a little bit more uncomfortable. And all of those things help us to deal with negative emotions. And it also helps us, we can come back to affirmations also if we do find ourselves overthinking, I think, just to bring it back to some of the themes that we've been running through tonight.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to that the affirmations and the things that we overthinking. Like I'm currently doing, currently finishing a diploma in counselling, and I'm right on the CBT part, and then it's all about, it's all about really examining the evidence. What is real, what isn't. Of why people are overthinking and looking at that evidence and breaking that evidence down to see what is true and what's not true. I mean, like I said, my previous partner, she didn't even want to look at the evidence, let alone think about the evidence, So, like you said, if those people are coming to therapy and they want answers, well, there are answers there and there are ways there to help people, and examining the evidence and the truth of everything and being honest with yourself, it just works wonders when you just be humble and start being humble about the truth about how things are. But that takes practice.
It really does, Peter. And I think also too, what I like to do proactively is to collect evidence so that when we have those moments where you get the imposter syndrome or you're doubting yourself, I find the best thing I can do is if I get into that thing, because sometimes, especially when you put yourself out there and you're going out where people don't normally go, and there is fear that comes with that, and there is the doubt where you don't feel you're good enough. So what I do if I have those days where I'm thinking, oh, what's the point? I go to perhaps, my LinkedIn profile and I read all the recommendations, or I keep screenshots of nice things that people have said. Like I've got lots from Scott. You say just such beautiful things. I screenshot those and I've got them on my phone. I do.
Oh, Scott's one of your biggest fans.
Oh, mutual admiration society here. But I keep those and then I'll go back through my phone and I'll go and reread those. And I remember talking to somebody I was coaching about this, and because she was really, really doubting herself. So then I said to her, go and look at all this evidence. Look at the people that have said good things about you, the grants you've gotten, the awards you've won, and then ask, are all of those people lying?
Yeah. That's big.
Yeah. Found that was really helpful.
Yeah, I got hit with that one myself. When I was doubting myself whether or not I was going to be, moving forward with helping people and bits and pieces, and the evidence was stacking up that I was doing it all, but it's still getting over that initial hump, and go back to those moments where people have complimented you, because people, if you ask yourself, when do you give compliments? You only do them for real reasons. You only compliment somebody if someone's done something good, and I just want to drop back a second about encouragement, because encouragement is everything. And I'm going to throw it over to Paul on this, because there's a story I remember about Paul that when you left hospital on crutches and you made the first light bulb, right? Your wife was with you. How much encouragement did she give you to get to that point? And how much did that strengthen you?
Phenomenal. Constant. 24/7. Absolutely phenomenal. There are days where I think I've told you about the lampposts, haven't I? The targets of lampposts. Yeah. Where I used to try and walk from one to the other, the elbow crutches, get out the chair and walk. And it was just so difficult, but I couldn't have done that without that support. It was just crucial. I probably could have done it, but it would have taken a lot longer. But when you've got somebody pushing you mentally and physically, that support's worth everything. It's gold, absolute gold. You know,
and that's something I think, you know, we're good at supporting, we're good at the encouragement, but you've got to be able to take it. You've got to be able to let people give it, because that energy, when someone's giving you support and encouragement, it creates a positive energy, which gives you more energy to get things done. So,
well, I mean, just going back to that point, and also something Stacey said earlier on about, you know, finishing a talk and people coming up and being kind to you and giving compliments and things.
Yep.
Witnessing kindness produces a hormone called oxytocin, which is really good for your health. So by accepting compliments, accepting support, accepting the kindness, and witnessing that, it's often referred to as the love hormone, because it aids in lowering your blood pressure. It improves your overall health. It helps you increase your self-esteem and your optimism. So why wouldn't you accept support and kindness from others? Because so many people, men in particular, in my experience, are very reluctant and reticent to ask for support and help. But why would you not do that when you can get all those benefits from it?
I think that's a question that we should open up on another panel, because I think that's something really big, because I find that a lot of men have a lot of trouble asking for help. I myself had a lot of trouble asking for help for many, many years. And
it's just the ego and vulnerability thing, you know.
Yeah. So I'm just going to pop this up, because Jessica's been amazing tonight, popping up bits and pieces. So isn't it a weird world that you have to give permission? Sorry, I'm going to try that again. Isn't it a weird world that we have to permission ourselves to have self-love, gratitude, and compassion? I personally think we've been so well marketed to that fear is our daily life. And I think it's our responsibility to try and find that self-love. You know, and I think every single person sitting on this panel, that's our main aim. You know, when we work with people, it's simply to help them find their self-love. So
I think that's an issue, though, Scott. Especially, I can speak for men, because it's mainly men that I've come across with this. If you say to most men, you've got to love yourself, and you need to really break it down, they're going to know, well, what are you talking about? It's a load of mumbo jumbo. What are you talking about? What does it actually mean to them? You need to really break it down, because it's an alien concept. We're okay. We're understanding it. And probably some of the audience that are listening to this now as well understand the concept.
Yeah.
But there's going to be people out there that go, okay, well, what does that mean?
It's pretty simple when you change the word from love to just be kind to you, like you would to a best mate or to your pet dog or something. You know, be kind. Yeah. Be kind to yourself. Use kind words. Do things for yourself.
Yeah. Care for yourself.
You deserve. Be kind, because if you're used to having the opposite, it's very hard to know what kind is.
Yeah.
So maybe look at, would you treat your best friend like you would yourself? You know what I mean? So you got to give them examples sometimes. And
yeah, you do.
Also, it's about breaking it down. Like the love part's pretty scary. Oh, you got to love yourself. Oh, yeah, I drink as many beers as I can, but that's not love. Yeah, having a good diet, going on exercise, taking yourself to a nice movie, reading a good book, all that entitles it. And looking new, dressing nice, and making an effort in your dress, cooking yourself a nice meal. That's all self-love.
But it's not selfishness. And that I think sometimes we have to make that clear distinction to some people, because you say, do all those things. Oh, yeah, okay, great, give it me. I'll do all these things, you know, I'll look after myself and all this. But it's all about sharing as well, and not being selfish. And I think when you're working with people, and you maybe, I think I've said this a few times, you know, and what about your self-love? How do you rate that? And they go, well, what is it? And when we break it down, Peter, you just said it so well about, you know, being kind to yourself and everything else. And once you put it in that context and you give those examples, and then I can think of one particular occasion where a guy wanted to take it literally. You know, he wanted to eliminate everything else in his life apart from loving himself. Yeah. And so, no, life's not for that. You know, we really worked through it. And he got there in the end, but it was the steep hill for him to climb.
Yeah. I tell stories. Like there's one story that I use a lot, and I've spoken to Scott about, I think, and it's about if you're go to a supermarket and you're in aisle 1, and then this poor little kid is in aisle 3, lost, and the mother's in aisle 9, way up the other end. This kid's nowhere is, and the kid's distraught. It could be 4 or 5 years old, lost, really, really upset. If you went into aisle and saw that kid, what would you do? Would you pick it up and say it's okay, or would you rouse on it? How would you treat that kid? You'd pick it up and go, so great, you're safe. You're safe in my arms. We'll find your mum. She loves you. You love us. All going to be okay. Imagine if we said that to ourselves, for Christ's sake, in our moment of turmoil, in our moment of, and then the kid sees the mother, and it's just, it's looking after that inner child within ourselves. And it's frightening at first. So that's just one little example that I like to use about, and I've heard it before, and it's fantastic. I love it. What would you find?
That's absolutely fantastic. No, I love it. That's absolutely fantastic. So believe it or not, panel, we've gone for an hour and 6 minutes already. So, which, like, I adore being a part of this, because every time we do these, I'm learning. So I'm really hoping the people who watch these get around them and enjoy them, because I'm starting to get questions to come in. I'm starting to get bits and pieces, but every week there's so much gold. So, panelists, thank you very much. But as per usual, I'm going to ask for your one bit of gold. Your one bit of gold to help people to, help control their negative emotions. So I'm going to start with you, please, Paul.
Okay. My goal for today is celebrate the wins of the day. At the end of the day, share those wins, regardless of what the size is. If you manage to cook something without burning it, share it. Celebrate it. If you fix something in the house, celebrate it. If you've done 25 press-ups, celebrate it. Celebrate those and celebrate the small successes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you very much. Peter.
I don't want to say be kind to yourself, because I already said that, so I'll say another one. The one I heard was, someone told me once, when it comes to these issues that you're having, is it your problem, God's problem, or their problem? Whose problem is it? Divide it up.
Yeah. Look, beautiful. Thank you very much. Stacey?
Oh, look, I think coming back to the gratitude piece it's the centerpiece of it all. And I think even in the times where, and the tool I use is coming back to, I mentioned gratitude mantras and stuff before. And if I do find myself sometimes in that space where, you feel a bit overwhelmed or overthinking and stuff like that, is just to stop and say thank you. And I just say thank you for the opportunity to be who I am, where I am, with what I have at this moment in time. And, if it is a problem or a challenge that you're dealing with, I see them as gifts. I see them as opportunities. I see it as a privilege to actually have stuff to deal with. I think just gratitude changes everything. And very similarly, as Scott said, if someone is reaching out to you or unloading their problems on you, it's a gratitude thing. It's thank you. It's thank you for trusting me to create a space and trusting me to be able to share this. So I think there's not a lot that can't be solved with love and gratitude.
Yeah, bang on. I'm with you. And for me, I'm very much of the same ilk. Thank you. And the one tip I've got for everybody this week is, if you can't find a reason to thank yourself, you are in a negative space, stop. Watch somebody else. Somebody does something to you, thank them. It's the best gift you can give them and also yourself. Find a reason to thank somebody else if you haven't got one to thank yourself. So, on that, campers, I want to say thank you so much, Peter. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, Stacey. And again, thank you for everyone for watching. Jessica, you've been absolutely amazing tonight with all the commentary, and I'm looking forward to having that dance. So thanks, folks. Thanks for another Thursday Night Live. Let us know if you want to be a part of the panels, if you've done a one-on-one, because I'm always looking for panelists. Thank you guys so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This has been
Welcome.
fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, campers. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.